Well, I definitely did not have this on my bingo sheet. David Archuleta coming out as gay, coming out of Mormonism, and then also giving us a gay version of Espresso. Like, child, I don't know, but 2025, I will definitely say it has been one for the history books, and there has been all kinds of history made, not only for several other reasons, which we're going to get into very soon, but mostly because 2025 has been the only year that I can recall in recent memory without a song of the summer. No, I'm being serious. There really was not a song of the summer. There really wasn't. And I really thought that this song, Creme Brulee, was going to be one. I mean, it's Espresso Revisited. It's Espresso, the remix, the gay remix. And it has all the vibes, the energy, and it has all the catchiness of a song of the summer. But it just didn't take, child. It was what it was. But like I said before, 2025 really has been groundbreaking, history making. I mean, there's been a lot of history made. I mean, take the Pope and the King of England praying together. The East Wing of the White House being demolished, or it has already been demolished to be quote unquote modernized into a big ballroom. The Department of Justice possibly paying the President of the United States, or as I call him, the Cheeto, for the past federal investigations that he had in 2024 for his alleged quote-unquote election interference, whatever. My God. And those are just three major instances of history in three different ways. One that hasn't happened in 500 years. One that is happening or has already happened right before our very eyes. And one that could be history making for all the wrong reasons. Child, it is truly unprecedented times that we are living in. But wait, that's not all. Hold on, wait a minute now. There's more. A Category 5 hurricane known as Hurricane Melissa hit my beloved island of Jamaica. Which Melissa, I say to Melissa, want beat you down a block of fight you. But we're not going to do that right now. But it was truly the strongest storm of the year and in the history of Jamaica to hit the beloved island. Oh, yes, how could I forget? Mr. Mamdani, yes, Brother Zoran, he won the New York City mayoral election. Congratulations to you, becoming the first Muslim and millennial to be elected to the post. Can you believe that? Oh, yes, Japan has its first female prime minister. Well, congratulations to y'all. And also, yes, how can I forget? As of today, November 5th. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm recording this episode on November the 10th. It has been 41 days since the government shut down, making this the longest shutdown in U.S. history, which quintessentially makes the Cheeto the first and the only president to preside over two of the longest government shutdowns in history. Woo, my gosh. So much history made in such a short period of time. But how? Why? And how? And why? Oh, yes, child. Too much history. Gotta say it twice. How? Why? And how? Well, that's what we're gonna find out. However, that's just big history. I mean, there's small history, personal history, mixed history, and every other history that's involved. My God. But honey, it is what it is. But with all this talk about historic this and unprecedented that and record-breaking, first of its kind, fill in the blank, whatever, let's talk about history, shall we? And everything, body, instance, and everything else involved in it. But what is history? Well, history is defined as a chronological record of significant events, often including an explanation of their causes. Now, history. Where to start? Well, we can start at the beginning, maybe. We can't do that. What? I don't know how it started. I wasn't there. And also, those who were there, they're long gone now. But let's not complicate things too much, shall we? For all intents and purposes, we're gonna focus on three forms of history, shall we? Personal history, national history, and world history. Now, We did, to some extent, talk about history in a different lens via memories, specifically in Session 6, Episode 7, A Moment in Time or Something to Remember Forever. Yes! Gotta do my own promotion, girl. Where we discussed how memories are formed from quote-unquote first experiences or moments of extreme emotional, mental, or physical importance. Now, history, even though it tends to function along the same lines, is a little more complicated than that. And I know I'm all over the map right now, but hell, this is my show. Y'all know how this goes. But let me go ahead and try to really simplify things. What makes a historical moment? Well, generally it's something that has never been done, seen, or heard of before. It's something with huge implications and or ripple effects, which we'll talk about later on. And it is something that's just wow. Just wow. Now, a historical moment, it can differ depending on, what it is. Take personal history. From the first paycheck, the first job, the first loss, things like that. These three instances now are historic in terms of personal history, since everybody remembers the first time they got their own money, the first time they had to get up, go to a place, and do something to earn, and the first time that they lost someone in their life. Now, as I've talked about in different episodes in previous sessions, different factors can impact whether these quote-unquote first I've listed will have a lasting impact / be a defining moment in your personal life or history, for all intents and purposes. Take a first paycheck. It may inspire you to do more, to make more, since, it's the first time you've had your own money. A first job, depending on what kind it is and how they treat you, it may push you to find another job or to find another way to move up in the profession that you have. And a first loss, it may have a lighter or heavier impact on you depending on who it is and what your relationship to the deceased person in question was. Now, my first paycheck, it gave me the drive to get a full permanent time job or a permanent full-time job, girl. My first job inspired me, to do the same. Wait, what? Hold on. Let me put some context, okay? My first job was at a nail salon with under-the-table practices, and my first paycheck was from a temp job with Barney's NYC warehouse sale. Yeah. So, there you go. My first loss, however, was with my uncle in 2028, which hurt, but not as much as losing my twin brother 15 years later, last year in 2024. Happens. National history. Well, let's use the Cheetos re-election and Mr. Charlie Kirk's assassination. Now, these two quote-unquote historical events were historic since the Cheeto was the first president to win 2 non-consecutive terms since Grover Cleveland, and the first felon to win the office of the President of the United States. Yes. Mr. Kirk, Brother Charlie, on the other hand, he was the first high-profile conservative controversial figure to be assassinated. While he was answering a question on mass shootings of all things. I just had to mention that. What? I mean, that manner in which he died, it just has Alanis Morissette's ironic written all over it. Tell me if I'm wrong. Isn't that ironic? Don't you think? A little too ironic. And yet I really do think. And I'm not laughing at his death. God no, may Mr. Kirk rest in peace, Sister Erica. I'm with you on that. But the fact that he got murdered while answering a question on shootings, it's just wild. I mean, again, I gotta send Alanis Morissette some royalty checks when I get a chance. But moving on from that. Also, these two historical events were something that we all, the American public, were seeing play out in real time. I mean, at the time of the 2024 election, we didn't know who was going to take it. It could have been Miss Harris, Sister Kamala, who made history as the first woman to take the office of the President of the as the swing states went red, quote unquote, we realized that America wanted not a woman, but a felon to lead us for the foreseeable future, or at least for the next 4 years. In the case of Brother Kurt, Mr. Charlie now, while responding to a question about mass shootings, counting or not counting gang violence, we'll never know, since he took a bullet in the neck right after that statement. He was quickly rushed to the hospital, and it was just a question of, will he make it? Now, that was at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on September the 10th, on a Wednesday specifically, when I saw that he was shot. By the time I had left work at 8 o'clock and was on my way home, I checked YouTube for the news headlines and found out that Mr. Chark, Brother Charlie, had succumbed to his gunshot wound and passed away. It was historic not only because he was a high-profile, polarizing, conservative, controversial figure in U.S. politics and in American culture overall, but more so because up until that point, conservatives, they have been under the belief that they had godlike omnipotence. Like they can say or do anything and not have to worry about getting quote unquote touched. For those of you who don't know what that means, touch is a black colloquial term which means beat up, killed, things like that. Oh, and on the topic of assassinations, the Cheetah was almost assassinated too. Oh yeah, and I forget about that one. Now that would have been really historic, and that would have been epic behavior, honey. I mean, I had 3 statements if I was ever asked about the news, and I'm going to share those with you. Number 1, I would have, of course, sent my condolences to his family and his friends, because despite what the Cheeto is, he means something to somebody. He just means nothing to me. And on the second point, that I would literally be saying, in terms of how I feel about him, he gets nothing but dust from me, beloved. Nothing but dust. And number 3, to the person who assassinated him, the Cheeto, I mean, if he were to be assassinated, to the person who decided to assassinate the Cheeto, epic behavior on your part. That is epic behavior on your part. Although you might want to quickly try to get out the goddamn country, because they will be hunting you like a goddamn dog. Okay. Oh gosh. But yes, that would have been historic and epic behavior. But it was only his ear that got grazed. I feel like that assassinated chimp was really what clinched his election victory, rather than his promises to quote unquote, make everything more affordable and clear up all the wars on day one, since, prices are still high. The Russia-Ukraine war is still going on 10 months into his goddamn term, despite promising to end it on day 1. And then also the whole thing about affordability, apparently he don't want to hear it anymore, since apparently everything's low, even though SNAP benefits have run out, and he is literally over here having a party via The Great Gatsby. I mean, wow, talk about a little party that'll kill nobody, which was the theme of his goddamn party, but child. We're gonna move on from that, at least for now, but we gonna touch back up on that ass. Trust me, we gonna get back to you. Anyways, these 2 events have, as a result, energized the right to quote-unquote arm up and stand by, because the left has declared quote-unquote war. Interesting. Now, in terms of world history, the only event that I can use is the coronavirus pandemic. Not only because it was the first time in over 100 years that a virus reached pandemic status, it was historic in world history since it shut the entire world down, to some extent anyways. Some parts more than others, like China, Australia. For example, the US, not so much. That was more so optional rather than non-negotiable, but was what it was. And we all know how that turned out. Go look in your history books or go check Wikipedia if you think a bitch is lying. Excuse me. Seasoned or shaming. Another historical moment in world history that comes to mind within recent memory is the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Wait, what? Let me explain. She was the longest serving queen in history and the longest reigning British monarch in history as well. However, However, the ripple effects of both of these world quote-unquote historical moments varied. For coronavirus, history for individual nations was changed since it forced every single nation, including the US, to confront their long-standing issues head-on and to see their goddamn country for what the hell it was, or still is. And in personal history of individuals, that was forever changed, whether it be by the loss of their loved ones, their own lives themselves, RIP to those who we lost, their jobs / livelihoods, and things like that. For the Queen, individual nations' histories were changed as some were inspired to relinquish the crown as their head of state and become republics, aka Barbados, or i.e. Barbados, and Jamaica. Well, not Jamaica. Well, not yet anyways. They started the process of doing so, I think, but it's still taking a while. I don't know. Yeah. And as for personal history regarding the Queen, well, it depends on how you felt about her and the crown. Some mourned her like a family member and waited for hours, or queued, as the English say, to pay respect to her, lying in state. Others, well, child, they chanted either she's in a goddamn, well, either they chanted she's in a box, say they can, but they don't, or just drunk a beer in honor of her death. Said it before, I'll say it again. Argentinian Twitter is so fucking savage, bitch. But then again, on that day, so was Black and Irish Twitter, and also Scotland Twitter. Woo! My God, Twitter for the win. But I don't know nothing about X. Anyways, now, although not all historical moments don't affect your personal history or even a nation's history, you can't help but participate in it, as in some way it is something that is rarely, that is either rarely or never seen. It just isn't. For example, even though I didn't have an opinion about Queen Elizabeth dying or about King Charles becoming king, so to speak, or Charles as I'm going to call it, since, you know, I'm forever with goddamn Princess Diana, the only Princess of Wales, R.I.P. Diana, period. No shade to Sister Catherine. No shade to you, sister, but gotta let it be known. Yeah. Let me go ahead and say this. Even though I don't exactly care about the Queen of England passing or about Charles getting coronated or, inaugurated as king, so to speak, I did watch both their programs. Yes, the Queen's funeral and Charles's coronation respectively. Yes, I did. Since it was such a moment in history to witness. I mean, both occasions harken back to an olden time of centuries past. They even had all the trimmings, the traditions, and all the goddamn garb. It was like it took me back to the 18th century, the 17th century, only without the plague. Although the plague happened 4 years earlier, 5 years earlier, but still, it is what it is. Anyways, excuse me, pardon me. Another example was when oh yeah, another example, how could I forget, is when Obama was elected president. Yes, it was a historic moment, since it was the first time a Black person, or any person of color really, got elected to the office of the President of the United States. Was I impressed by it? To be honest, I was like Huey Freeman. Meh. So nah, not really. What? Yes, I was witnessing history being made in real time before my eyes. I remember watching that inauguration in the 8th grade, honey. But, and this is a small but, yeah. But it's not like, it was the best thing that could happen in life. That's the thing about history. Not all of it is going to have a profound effect on you. And also, you really don't realize how momentous a quote-unquote historical moment really is until pretty much years later. And speaking of years later, that is really what determines history. Time. Now, we have talked about time several times on this show, specifically using the past in session 2, a single year in session 3, 2020, via aging in session 5, and as I stated earlier, via memories in session 6, the previous session. Now, this show, Thoughts of a Retro Bystander, it has went through some changes. It has gotten longer. As y'all see, it's gotten a lot more interesting, and I've gotten a lot more mixier over the years. And some things, I'm not gonna lie, even going back to my history, it's just like, some of it I love, some of it's cringy, but most of it I will still, not even most of it, all of it I will still love, because at the end of the day, it's my show, it's my history, it's my legacy, boo. It is what it is, okay? And hell, it's even gotten another version, a redo session, a part 2 to the regular session, which is what the hell I'm doing now. Now, the redo session is not a rewriting of the history of the regular session, God no, but it's rather an expansion of what the regular session touched on that I didn't exactly get to the first time around. And the same thing does apply to history. History isn't necessarily changed, but it's more so added upon in certain ways by historians, archaeologists, and those other kind of people via source criticism. I'm getting a little technical, but bear with me. Now, source criticism is how an information source is evaluated via validity, reliability, and relevance to the subject under investigation. When, where, by whom, and for what pre-existing material was the source produced, these four are classified as higher criticism, while what original form of the sources produced is classified as lower criticisms. All 5 of these quote-unquote standards that I just listed are known as external criticism. The 6th and last aspect of source criticism is evidential value, which is classified, or evidential value over source, is classified as internal criticism. Altogether, these 6 make up source criticism, honey. Yes, a lot of technical aspects going on into history. Are we going to talk about all of them? No. I don't have the time. Maybe in the redo series we can touch back up on it, but we're not going to talk about it right now. We're going to move the hell on. But let's keep going, shall we? Now, history, it can be seen in films via historical dramas, biographical films for individuals, books, museums, things like that. However, nowadays with different views, polarizations of political climates, and now AI, which AI we will dive hella in depth later on in another session, in another episode down the line. History is getting renewed, re-edited, or just plain revised. In some cases, honey, it's just a matter of reflecting the changing times and to try to make right with some of the wrongs that occurred in the past, i.e., removing statues of oppressive figures and symbols, renaming certain places and or teams, things like that. In other cases, it's about making light of a tragic, horrific event in history. Like, for example, Holocaust and the deniers, coronavirus and all the conspiracy theorists and theories that came out of that, and then just January 6, 2021. Period. And speaking of, some history, no matter how much you don't like it or makes you uncomfortable, yes, my children, I'm talking to y'all, it can't be changed, erased, modified, spun, whatever you want to call it. Take January 6th. Some people in the country like to see it as a peaceful tour or just a small group of agitators making trouble. But to be fair, the same can be said about the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. Like how they were just peaceful protests with a small group of troublemakers causing chaos. Both can be said, both statements can be true about both events. However, a couple things. Number one, January 6th and Black Lives Matter protests, they were happening for 2 different reasons. Black Lives Matter protests, it was just a matter of accountability and justice in relation to police brutality and systemic racism that's been occurring since before Rodney King. Let me emphasize that again. Black Lives Matter protests were just about accountability and justice in relation to police brutality and systemic racism stemming before Rodney King, child. It didn't just happen with him, it started before him. It's just been amplified ever since. And from Trayvon Martin to goddamn Tyree Nichols, child, it's a wrap for me and cops. But we're going to move on from that. January 6th now, that was just about surviving the 2020 election by Trump supporters because their guy lost 60 times in the court. He lost it at the ballot. He lost it in the courts. It was what it was. Y'all just couldn't take it. It's fine. And trust me, that mess was also so history-defining. It was history-defining. Well, it was history-making, and it was such a defining moment, not only for me, but for the country, because it's like I saw two different kinds of protests happening all at once. Actually three. Stay-at-home protests, Black Lives Matter protests, and the January 6th, which was technically a protest. Two were just seen as peaceful protests. One was just seen as ridiculous. Which one? I'm trying to find out, but let's be real. Number 2, Black Lives Matter protests. The chaos was far and few in between. And the majority of the protests were actually peaceful. I saw all of them. Majority was peaceful. It only got crazy and to some extent just fully out of control at the beginning. It wasn't all through because them shits went on for months. In certain cities it may have to, but I'm not even gonna lie. It was what it was. No justice, no peace. However, the same could also be said about January 6th, but there was actual violence. I mean, 5 people died on that day alone, and 5 more died afterwards. A lot going on. Glasses were broken. People, they got into goddamn Nancy Pelosi's office. They got into the chambers. It was just a matter of, where the hell is Mike Pence so we can hang his ass? They were literally chanting his ass. And thanks to a goddamn black police officer saving white children, it was, if Eugene didn't do what he did, Mike Pence would not be alive today. But we're gonna move on, baby. And number 3, similar instances occurred around the world. I mean, Black Lives Matter protests, they happened in other countries, but they were peaceful for the most part. And January 6th, interestingly enough, there was a quote-unquote tropical version, as conservatives say, but a similar version happened in Brazil 2 days and 2 years to the date of January 6, 2021. Later, resulting in mass damage, injuries, and arrests on that day, because unlike in the U.S., Brazil, they actually have a proper functioning democracy. Who knew? No shade, but child, moving on. Either way, in either case, nothing can be changed because there is video, audio, visual, charges, and pardons in the case of the January 6th, but it is what it is, child. At this point, whatever. And finally, I have to make a note of this. Historical dramas are great at depicting historical events, to some extent. However, not everything in the shows are accurate, or even to some extent the truth, if The Crown is any example. Some dramatic liberty has to be taken, and also the First Lady's Shout Out to You, that show on Showtime, but some liberties have to be taken. I mean, it's not like you're actually in the room, and besides, not everything can be 100% verbatim. History isn't even like that, okay? It's not set in stone like that. I'm so sorry. It's always being changed and made every day. That's history, figuratively and literally. Oh, and with that being said, me and history are, that. But before I go ahead and make some history of my own, maybe, possibly, who knows, or maybe make some herstory. Oh my God. Drag Race is something else. History, her story, whatever kind of story, make something. A few things. Number 1, history is that the past, what came before, and it is what it is at this point. It kind of is. Where does history interact? What is real history? What is the true history? I don't know. Do your own research. Oh, that's number 2. Do your own research regarding history, because you'll be amazed at what you find out or what you discover. We really are just one person, but in 8 billion or 10 billion possibilities. I don't know. Google Play be fucking up. But in terms of downloads, I mean, they really be. Anyways, that's a different kind of history. Anyways, number 3, regarding revised history. Tammy Roman, I think you said it best. Oh my God, bitch. How are you going to tell me here a lie about something that's been filmed and aired? You cannot lie when I have receipts. Wait, hold on, girl. I gotta say that again. Oh my God, bitch. How can you lie about something that's been filmed and aired? You cannot lie when I have receipts. I mean, text interviews, eyewitnesses, and all that. Come on.
Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see